Should Russia emerge victorious in the conflict with Ukraine, negotiations won't likely be spurred solely due to the depletion of Ukraine's arsenal. Russian President Vladimir Putin perceives himself as holding a position of formidable advantage. In a recent dialogue with Rossiya 1, the state-controlled broadcasting network, he delineated the conditions for discussions with Kyiv. "We are prepared, but only in accordance with the prevailing circumstances, as they say, on the terrain." Putin anticipates that military prowess will pave the way for his dominance in Ukraine. Presently, the Ukrainian military lacks the capability to reclaim lost territories. The arrival of Western armored vehicles came belatedly, and there remains a conspicuous absence of effective aerial support. Concurrently, the supply of ammunition dwindles due to the blockage of aid from the U.S. Absence of a robust demonstration of strength from Western powers would likely result in Russia securing victory in the conflict by next year at the latest. In the event of a complete collapse of the front, Russia could potentially reshape present-day Ukraine through a peace agreement aligned with Moscow's desires. This would mark a significant milestone in Putin's imperial aspirations. At best, the conflict might be temporarily halted. Nevertheless, Russia's confrontation with the West would be far from concluded. The spearhead of the offensive has already encroached upon Western territories. Further escalation could imperil the Alpine region and its critical infrastructure. The triumph of Russia in the Ukrainian conflict could precipitate subsequent assaults. The Kremlin's objective is to undermine NATO and the EU, and ideally, dismantle them. Gradually, Russia inches toward open hostilities. The Russian Federal Security Service, FSB, and Chief of the General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, have spearheaded this strategy. In a speech in 2013, Gerasimov outlined the Russian military's perspective on Ukraine and Syria. NATO initially labeled this approach as the Gerasimov Doctrine, although it later transpired to be a misinterpretation. Gerasimov espoused the concept of nonlinear warfare, termed hybrid warfare in Western parlance. This stratagem, rooted in historical precedents, including Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union's initiation of World War II, as well as the KGB's active measures during the Cold War, resurfaced in the 2000s under the Kremlin's auspices. Drawing from 2 decades of experience, the offensive against the West could unfold in 5 interconnected stages. Establishment of an alternative ideological framework. Putin articulated the narrative of a menacing NATO in February 2007 during a speech at the Munich Security Conference. "I firmly believe that we have reached a juncture necessitating a thorough reassessment of the entire global security architecture." This discourse heralded a resurgence in Russian geopolitical influence. Putin's Munich address laid the groundwork for a disinformation campaign. Western apprehensions regarding the U.S.'s approach to the war on terror were deftly reframed. This information warfare persists unabated, constituting the underlying motif of the Kremlin's actions. The West finds itself destabilized by its own principles, cornered. Following Ukraine, the Baltic states emerge as prime targets. Daily incitements on social media and in interviews intensify hostilities. Once again, the Russian minority serves as a pawn. The stage is set for internal discord, ripe for Russian intervention. In the event of Ukraine conceding territory to Russia, a substantial influx of refugees toward the West is foreseeable. Simultaneously, Russia may seek to bolster irregular migration from Africa, leveraging its expanded influence in the Sahel and eastern Libya. The anticipated outcome is further division within the West. Heightened debates on asylum strengthen pro-Russian factions across Europe, potentially marginalizing traditional parties. Escalated subversion in targeted regions of conflict. In early March, Evgenia Gudel, governor of Moldova's Gagauzia region, appealed to Moscow for assistance against the pro-Western government in Chisinau. Moldova, a non-NATO member, could become the initial theater for Russia's westward offensive. A segment of Moldova, east of the Dniester River, remains under Russian sway since the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1992. The pseudo-state of Transnistria endures within Moldova's borders. Efforts by the Moldovan government to thwart further encroachment are evident. Gudel's entreaties might one day serve as pretext for Moscow's intervention under the guise of peacekeeping troops. Chisinau would struggle to repel a limited military incursion, even if orchestrated by ostensibly unaffiliated armed groups. The Baltic states strive to preempt such scenarios. Latvia, with its sizable Russian minority, is the weakest link. Riga, the capital, remains a focal point for the Russian elite. Latvia's political landscape is fractured, with the Harmony Party advocating dubious alignment with Moscow. Latvia endeavors to fortify state resilience, deporting Russian citizens who refuse to undergo Latvian language assessments. The Kremlin seeks to exploit this avenue to foment dissent. I harbor doubts regarding the efficacy of such policies in fostering prosperity, Putin remarked in December 2023, a thinly veiled admonition. Latvia and Moldova loom as potential targets for Russia. Moscow will escalate subversion efforts in Latvia in the ensuing years, with elections slated for 2027. Pre-election turbulence could serve as a prelude to a concerted assault on the NATO member. However, such an offensive would likely be coordinated from positions further westward.